Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Football Transfer Forum webinar. I'd like to say I can promise this is an American election-free zone, but it's probably going to descend into some sort of American politics at some stage. So I apologise in advance. Which actually I wish both of those candidates would have done as well at some point in their term. Tony, it's another Football Transfer Forum webinar. I can't even think about how many of these we've done, but we've had some great people on the webinar series since the lockdown started all the way back in the spring, and no change to today. Just before we get in and I introduce everybody, how happy are you in terms of how it's gone and the people that we've had on and the content we've been able to share?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Yeah, it's it's another lockdown special webinar, isn't it? You know, it's as if we knew it was going to happen. I think we've done 7 now, I think, of these webinars. And it was Guy Branson's idea. He rang me up and just said, why don't we do a webinar and have a chat about football? And it's refined itself from there. And I've been really delighted with the response. We've got a really strong audience of, agents, people in recruitment in football, and people from companies as well that are logging on and taking part. So no, I've been delighted with it. And just another aside is I've been trying to get Simon Wilson on the Football Transfer webinar for some time now, haven't I, Simon? And I'm really delighted he's on today. So it's a good thing.
Excellent. So again, we've got 2 fabulous guests today. We really appreciate their time coming on. As Tony's alluded to, Simon Wilson, Director of Football at Stockport County. Morning, Simon. How are you?
Morning, everyone. Morning, Ryan. Morning, Tony. Morning, Guy. Sam. Really looking forward to being part of it today. It's my first one, so expecting big things. No pressure.
Good stuff, and a great result for County in the FA Cup last night.
Yeah, a bit of a weird one, really, in terms of getting a second bite at it. We actually lost the first game on penalties, and then through an administrative situation, the game had to be replayed, and we came out on top last night. But delighted to go into the next round, and making sure that we cross our T's and dot the I's on every bit of paperwork we go moving forward, because it's important.
Absolutely. And we're also joined today by Sam Graham, Commercial Ops Manager, Football Manager from SI Games. Sam, morning. How are you?
Morning, Ryan. Morning, everyone. Yes, doing well, thanks. Hope everyone's all good. But yeah, doing well.
Excellent. We were just having a chat just off air before we came on about Guy's stats in the Football Manager game over the year. Have you had a chat with the guys in the office this morning about trying to fix some of those in prior to coming on today? Or
well, to be fair, Guy said his stats are really good. I was a bit worried he was going to give me a hammering, but
I can always share the screen. I can always share it. Waste everyone's time.
I think he was very happy with them, so we're all good.
Excellent.
Sam, there must have been a glitch in the system to rank Guy that highly. I think that needs to be checked out. You need to have a look at your systems, because he can't be that high. He was playing for Arsenal, apparently.
Got pictures to prove it.
I'll get onto the research team.
Get onto them. Get the guys. Get Miles to ring me up. Dean Gritton. Get him to ring me up. I'll prove it.
Yeah, I'll let Dean know. He's a good guy.
I'm very harsh on you, Guy. But morning, Guy, as well. Guy, I think it's important to reflect, isn't it, as the sort of country enters into another lockdown, how fortunate we are to be in football, and being able to carry on and work in the game that we love.
I'll go from my own personal background and what's been happening for me, but I've had a club support me for the last 6 or 7 months. Get on with your work and deliver your work, and get your pats on the back like you always do when the work's been delivered. So it's been unbelievable, and it's been difficult for a lot of other people in football because of obviously the furlough scheme, and then obviously lads losing their jobs and ladies losing their jobs as well. So it's been really difficult for a lot of people, but we try and keep it as positive as possible, and we're hopefully coming out the other side after this lockdown, we hope.
Yeah.
Guy,
oh, sorry, Tony, go on.
Yeah, Guy, it's particularly hit the scouts hard, hasn't it? This, the situation that we're in. How's that been reflected at Leicester City? Obviously, it's, we're talking about a big Premier League club here, but it just seems to be at every level that scouts have been particularly hard hit.
The administration of trying to get into games has been difficult. 1 or 2 people only per club. We've got quite a few out on loan, so obviously I've got a bit of preference to the lads who have been out on loan, but I've been sharing it with the scouts as well to try and cover games. We've kind of gone offline into the remote world, which we've always had anyway set up, but the Premier League like you do. And we've probably highlighted and identified more via that for future reference, for future targets. The window was probably done 6 to 8 months before this window opened up, so we were already in advance of that. And then we're looking for, January and further afield. It's going to be difficult to cover as many games as we probably would have previously. The lads who I see on the circuit regular, they've been minimum. There's probably more journalists than there is scouts, which is, an amazing thing to see. And there's, I even see in the ground, there's more probably sponsors than at the games than there probably is journalists. So there's been a mixture of information floating around for the fans, for the scouts, for the staff. And it's been difficult to quantify where it's all going.
And right, Guy, how many lads have you got out at the moment on loan from Leicester?
I'm dealing with 8 now. There's about, I think it's 11 now out on loan in regards to first team as well, included 12. But I'm dealing with 8 under 23s down. We've got 3 at Leuven and 5 in the Football League.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Excellent. And Tony,
6 in the Football League. 6 in the Football League, sorry.
I think on our list of taboos, I think we've got, Brexit, the American election, and also I'm absolutely sick to death of talking about how good Leicester City are as well, because they are just absolutely what a phenomenal side at the moment. So really, well done to everybody that's involved in that process. Okay, let's have a look at what we're gonna get through today. Let me take you into this. Wait for this, click on. Okay, we're going to have a really good and in-depth chat with Simon. As I'll put some more detail on shortly. He's got an incredible experience in the game, working for some of the top clubs in the world, and a really, really interesting and exciting position that he's in now at Stockport County. So we're going to be really picking Simon's brain. And then it's going to be really interesting to hear from Sam about what's going on at Football Manager. Really, really, really interesting. It's absolutely not just a game, and it is absolutely a resource for the football industry as well. So we're hoping Sam's going to put some meat on those bones, and also tell us about a really interesting joint venture that they've got going on as well. A little bit later on, we're going to have a panel discussion. We're going to be asking the question, does every club need a sporting director? And is the answer to that yes, absolutely. That's best practice. That's the way to go. Or is it not appropriate for some people? And as always, we will try and get through as many of your questions as possible. Whilst the discussions are all going on, if you could put your questions in the Q&A box, that would be great. Another point of order, you would have seen that a few of the guys have already shared their LinkedIn details on the chat. So if you just make sure that you're sharing your chat to everybody on the webinar, and you want to share your details and you want to share your LinkedIn profile, we find that's the best way to create a bit of networking out of these webinars. But we're just up to about 10:40, so we're going to crack on, and we're going to have a really good chat with Simon. So Simon, as we touched on, a great result last night, and it's been a great start for the season at County. But I think my first question to you is, you've worked extremely senior level at Manchester City. At Sunderland, I know you've done a lot of consultancy as well with some of the top clubs in Europe. How have you found working at that level to now working in the National League, albeit with what is probably a club that shouldn't be in the National League?
Yeah. No, I mean, when when the Stockport situation came around, I mean, I got a lot of sort of just text messages with the question mark on it, just like what's tell me more type thing. And you know, for me, I think that I've been very, very fortunate to be in places in situations where they've been growing. So if I go right back to the start of my career, even as an apprentice, as a young player, I felt I was in good developmental environments, and I was a young player at Peterborough United and Norwich City, and these were like clubs that had to invest in development. So I guess I come from a developmental environment and background. That's a bit of an orientation. And into my sort of working career, I was at Prozone back in the day when it started up. So from having one computer and one analyst to grow into the company that Prozone became. You know, and I was sort of sat on the bus and went on the ride with that as that grew, going into Southampton Football Club, which again, as everyone knows, real developmental type philosophy and football club. And it was that was I joined them in 2003. A lot of the credit is given to the more recent kind of regimes in Pochettino and so forth, but you know, there's been a club that's developed young players for ages. And in my time, it was Wayne Bridge was in the first team, you know, and the youth players at the time were Bale, Oxlade Chamberlain, even Leon Best and Lallana, and the group, you know, that went on and had significant careers. And then coming into City in 2006, Manchester City wasn't the club. It was, you know, probably everyone here remembers Manchester City in 2006, sort of a big, small club, if you know what I mean, like huge following and history, but underperformed, but, you know, at the time, probably for its size. But again, just sort of caught the wave at the right time. So first round of investment with Thaksin Shinawatra that took the club up a level. Not a stable investment, it turned out to be, and then taken over by Abu Dhabi United, which, and everyone knows, is sort of the journey from that point forward. So I guess what to sort of come back to the text messages with the question mark on it and to try and explain it a little bit. I've always been involved in fast-moving growth environments, and I think that's what gives me my buzz, and I think that's probably where I'm at my best. I'm not the sort of person to be around something that if it's, you know, to be honest, as in my later years at City, as we started to sort of establish ourselves, I lost a little bit of energy in terms of, okay, we're big now, we're well resourced, we've got talent, it's kind of staying there. That's a really important mindset, as we know, but that's not really me. I get a little bit itchy, when I get a bit disruptive in that type of environment. So I'm not good to be around in that sense. But where I feel I've got my strength is that either in growth situations or turnaround situations, which was obviously the Sunderland situation. But so after I came out of Sunderland, and I'm happy to talk about that as part of this as well. But after I came out of Sunderland, I started to consult. Again, I just wanted to put myself into sort of situations where I was problem solving. So no matter where you were on your journey, it was a case of, okay, what does your next level look like? And how do we break that down? And how can I help you just get, in whichever area you're in, to your next level? And I really enjoyed that. And I did that for a couple of years. And as you said, got some great experiences, worked with some great people, great clubs, got to travel, you know, and that is really important to come. I felt like, you know, you see a lot of people that it's hard to stay in football, and a lot of people job around, but there's a lot of great experience from moving from club to club to club to get loads of different contexts, because I think what works at one club doesn't always work at the next one. And if you are a bit of a lifer, you stay in one club, you can easily fall into the trap to say, this is the way, and it's not. You know, as we know, for people that have sort of been around the circuit for a long time, there's different things. It's very nuanced, and what works in one place doesn't always work in the next place. But so I really enjoyed that. But I then met a guy that was Mark Stott, who's eventually gone and bought Stockport County, and I started to work on him on the due diligence of buying the club. And as I started to understand, you know, I started to look into the facts, I thought, you know, this has got a real chance. You know what I mean? It's kind of at the wrong position that it should be. Now, again, there is no should. You know, there's no gimmies at all. You know, everyone has to, especially in this league, have to work incredibly hard to get any type of success. But all that being said, We've had an owner that's got resource. We've got a fan base that's already built. You've got an infrastructure that's not too bad. Needed all the stuff that needed doing was easy to do and could be done. And then obviously it was just a very straightforward investment case in bringing talent to the club and bringing it into some sort of organisation that over time should start to perform. So, and uniquely, I was offered a small percentage of the club as well. So in all those circumstances, it's local to me. My kids are, you know, under 7, so to be around them, to be around the area, to be in a club that has got growth potential, that, you know, with a bunch of people that I really like working with as well. In the end, I felt like it was worth a go, and sort of let's see where it goes. So yeah, that's where I am. That's the explanation for the question mark on the text message.
So Simon, where's in terms of Stockport County, and obviously you've been at clubs at a lot higher level. Where's the ceiling for Stockport County?
I would say there's 2 massive jumps. You know, one is National League to League. That's a huge jump in terms of just the ability to get out of this league is hard. We probably all know the talent level between I was top in National League, League 2, and maybe the bottom 3-4 clubs in League 1 isn't a million miles away from each other. So in terms of the ceiling, and you see, I think, you know, again, came up in the due diligence, but about 50% of the clubs that come out of this league jump straight through into League 1. Yeah. So it's not about how good you are, it's other factors. So, you know, you can make a realistic case that Stockport County can be a League 1 club easily, and then it's the jump from League 1 to Champ and how hard that is, and what level of investment is required to do that. This ownership group, this fan base, this infrastructure feel like we could accomplish that with a fair wind, all going well, all the rest of the stuff. That's where I think we could. Going from Champ to Premier League is a different kettle of fish, and I think that. But Stockport County's got, you know, Stockport as a city's got 300,000 people. I mean, I looked at sort of like, you know, Middlesbrough's 80,000 people, and we've got cities and towns that have got smaller populations than that are high performing. So, you know, if we can, tap into a wider percentage of the community here, if we can build a team and a project that excites them and get them to come and get involved, we can make the investment much more sustainable, gives us a bit more time to get it done. And you know, I genuinely believe there's real growth in the club and the project.
Fantastic. Simon, it'd be really good for the guys tuning in and indeed us as well to sort of get some insight into what's your philosophy, your process on recruiting players, and also how has it changed over the years as well? Yeah.
So you know, I've had the fortunate the time really to take a good look at this without certainly in my early days at City, without necessarily the pressure of having to be the decision maker and having all, you know, if I make the wrong decision, suffering the consequences. So I've always been able to, I guess I've been able to sort of look from the sidelines and compare approaches and see what's out there and see which ones I like. And again, I think that there's I don't want to be a sit on the fence kind of vanilla type person here, but again, I don't think there is a one size fits all. That, you know, I really respect the Red Bull under 24, you know, model. I really respect the Right to Dream FC Nordsjælland going really young, homegrown only. I really respect Ajax's model. I really like that, again, coming from that development background. But having gone on that growth project with Man City, trying to win the league for the first time, you need senior players. You know, we absolutely, when it came to the crunch, the senior players were the ones that stepped up in the dressing room and helped us get over a hill. And so I see the value of that. I see the value of players coming into their peak as assets, ones that can grow with the club and grow with the project. So where I've sort of landed on it is a real balanced model. So I like to make, it's kind of like a real hedge on the squad. I like to have, you know, maybe I like to have the core of my players in their peak, of course. If we're a team that are trying to win, so we need the best players playing at their best moment of their career, best place for the level. We haven't got an unlimited budget, so we have to carve it up. So we need players that are just kind of pre-peak, if you like, somewhere between 20 and 24. That might not have played yet at this level, but have got all the indicators that they can play well at this level and continue to grow. We want babies, ones that are coming on the scene. We want our own ones as well for our own kind of youth development structures and that. But really importantly, I think we need senior players. We need the sort of the daddies, if you like, of the dressing room that have seen it and done it all before. That are that we really emphasize their value, and that they really buy into the wider project, and they invest in both contributing on the pitch as well as off the pitch as well. So that's where I land in terms of the squad model. Again, I think style of play, I'm not, I've got my own preference for what I like to watch and the teams I follow that excite me, but I can get excited about every single style, because what I think is right is that you pick one and you really recruit against that, and then you really try and execute that. Now that's whether you're really efficient and playing the opposition half, or whatever, or if you try and build and use it, make a big pitch and try and get 700 passes a game. I'm okay with both, but I just don't think the worst thing is to be confused, is to be neither one or the other, and therefore neither. So where we're at Stockport is that we will, we do want to try and play. But we want to be really efficient because the main thing here is that you don't get a lot of coaching time. So it's game, and we're obviously going into winter period, lockdown period. Pitches aren't always great, so we need to make sure that we deal with what the demands of the competition here, which is not a lot of coaching time, not always great surfaces. So we do have to go a little bit more efficient in terms of our play.
And Simon, you were able to bring Connor Jennings back to the club, who was obviously playing in League One successfully at Tranmere the previous season, which is obviously, I guess, one of the sort of those sort of senior recruitment pieces of recruitment, which is obviously really good. But I want to bring Guy in as well, because I really want to ask you about how you treat loans as well. Have you got any loans in at the moment, and how do you square the loan situation with sort of the first teams there to win games and not for development?
Okay, so our approach to loans at this moment in time is we've got one loan in at the moment, a young player called Louis Britton, is coming from Bristol City. He's on a short 2-month loan until 10th of Jan. Louis, 18 months ago, Louis was a painter and decorator, wasn't in the system. Was been from Bristol City 23s from local men's football. But his progress has been outstanding in terms of his acceleration, if you like, from that moment forward. We were interested in someone like Louis because of the speed of his progress, really, and we think that his rawness and his ability, to adapt to sort of to be a non-league footballer, if you like, is something that we're interested in. We will consider young players from clubs like that Guy will have at Leicester and clubs local to here. Of course, we will do, in terms of if we think that they are outstanding and ready. But to be totally transparent, we've got a preference on our own young players, or players that will be our assets, if you like, that we will look to purchase them or take them, or get into kind of joint ventures. So whether there's an immediate purchase with a buyback for the parent club, or significant sell on, that sort of thing. So almost looking, because I've sat the other side of the fence at City. Obviously, it's all well known the number of players that go out on loan, and I know the business case from the club side, from Guy's side, is in terms of what you're trying to achieve, which is really, really important and really valid for young players' development. But I think from our point of view, we those minutes that we're giving to players are valuable. And we're really hungry for success. So we just need to make sure that if we're offering those minutes out, that it's the right player that we think really can contribute to us, and really that we want to share in the upside of that as well. So if they do well, we win games, but we're also increasing the value of that player. So that's where we sit on it at the moment.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, Guy, what's your reaction to that? And are you finding that you're having to have a sort of more detailed conversation with a National League club or with a League Two club about right, how is this going to work?
It's any club really. Like I said, every case is different. When Simon's obviously got the background that he's got, he would have targeted more loans if they were more open to it anyway. So we would have seen that data, we would have seen that information floating around. We would have done our due diligence on most clubs, and if we was to target a player to go to a level that we thought was applicable to Simon, applicable to whoever else is listening out there, we would have done a bit of digging on it. And the level is important to us. We want to put players into a level where we think they can get back in our first team. It's a difficult drop to get into the conference to then get back into our first team. It's a difficult bounce. It's not detriment to the lad, the player. It's more so of, well, if we're recruiting them sorts of players as well as a football club, then we're not looking at the first team as a development pathway. And it's a difficult. I know we have passengers in all teams and players that have that sort of level already in the building, but it's difficult to get them to bounce back to us, and we don't want to put them in that situation. So loans are difficult anyway. They're not exact sciences. So we do a lot of work into the data, a lot of work into the information, and we would have seen the pathways that Stockport are doing to try and move players into the in through their own pathway, but obviously other clubs as well. And taking one that's already got non-league experience is what obviously Simon's already said about the players they're trying to target. Someone who's already got experience, someone who's a bit of a daddy in the dressing room, someone who can cope with a non-league environment, but now obviously got the jump into Bristol City to have a go at the higher levels, as they respectfully say.
Do you know, if I can just jump in there, something that Simon said that I really, really liked was the minutes on the pitch are important to us. So when you're investing in your player, so if you can get that 18-year-old minutes on the pitch in the National League, then that's going to be, straight away the scouts will go, right, as an 18-year-old on the pitch doing well in the National League, well, let's have a look at him first. So it's that building the value in the player. Whereas if he takes an 18-year-old from whatever club at higher level, comes down, he's giving minutes to that player, and that player's values rests with the club he's come from. So for me, I wouldn't do the loan. I wouldn't do any loans if it was my club. I'd want the players, the minutes on the pitch, to be kept for our investment and in our players.
It's really interesting because, sorry, Guy.
No, go on, mate.
That's. I mean, there's debate Tony throw down, and I can see you're going to go after it. Good for you. No, it's really. I think there's a couple of different cases, isn't there? For me, there's different cases. There's players that are outstanding for the level in that moment in time. They're better than you're going to be able to get recruits. So it's worth taking it because it's a unique set of skills in the marketplace. You're not going to get it. And also, it could be your financial position in the sense that you just need a lift, but you only need a lift for a short term. So there, you don't want to commit to a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. So it can be really attractive. I think what the thing in our specific situation is that, no, make no bones about it, we're trying to win the league. And therefore, any player that we bring in has to contribute to that. And so we're probably less risky but we're taking less risk, if you like, on it. Whereas if you're sat in the middle of the league, or your edges and fringes of playoffs or whatever, relatively stable, I think it makes a lot of sense from a financially, sporting wise, all the things, to take it. And I'm sure that Guy, you've got a range with the 8-9 players that you've got out there, are all in different sort of circumstances within their teams. But it feels to me like the clubs that are most active in the loan market tend to be sat outside the sort of the top positions because of these factors.
Guy, did you just want to come back on the previous point?
Yeah, it's a difficulty one for me because, like I said, Tony knows my feelings on lads playing football. My career was, I went to Rushden Diamonds. We were the big boys at the time in the conference from the Premier League as it was back then, 99 and 97, 98. So, I end up back in the Championship, but it takes a longer process. Some clubs at the time couldn't obviously have that amount of players in the building, but there is a stack of players in every Premier League football club now, not doing anything. And I'm a big believer in going and getting game time and valuable minutes, but the valuable minutes to one club and the ideas of a loan club, or the ideas of, say, Stockport's ideas of, we're giving you something, but we're already giving you something as well. So there's the challenge then with the finances. One of my questions to Simon earlier wanted to ask was, how did you see the, I would say, salary cap as a bonus this year for you guys in the conference, as a real good thing to aim for, because it's going to be difficult when you step up, because it's another challenge. It's going to massively affect the 50% you mentioned going straight back up, because beforehand there wasn't the salary cap, and these are the things that I'd look to in my position, at clubs as well, where they're probably struggling with salaries. Would that be something that you'd look to go, right, well, we might not be able to bounce straight back up, we might not be able to bounce again, and all these different things are affecting the salary cap that we spoke about previously?
Yeah. So yeah, I think it will affect things for sure in that way. I don't see it as negative, in the sense that, like, okay, I think we'll know that there are teams in that league right now with budgets way above the salary cap that are underperforming. So I don't think, I think when you look across the leagues, the correlation is strongest in the Premier League, and then as you go through the rest of the divisions, there is a correlation, but it's a low correlation between spending and success, because it's just, I think when you're playing Saturday in the Premier League, you got all the training time, and it's much cleaner and you get much more of effect. But when you're playing Saturday Tuesday, I just think there's more randomness in it. Fatigue, travel, all the rest of the stuff. It flattens the competition a little bit, and in the end, I think it becomes, of course, talent will always be the biggest factor, but I think things like momentum, the group, the fit within the team style and all that sort of thing, they end up becoming bigger factors in the teams that end up being successful. Hopefully, I think the reason the teams jump from the National League into League One quickly is less about the spend. I think it's more about the momentum and the fact that they've got systems and structures in place that allow them to carry through.
Me too. I was in that as Ryan. I was in that as the Rotherham double promotion team. And you talk about spend. We went into a League One side with like Man City in it, and Sheffield Wednesday, Man City within the Championship at the time. So all these difficulties that we had were all about culture and attitude and application on the pitch, from the young ones, from the older ones. So I'm a massive believer in culture and leadership from above and down.
And I'd love to chat. I'm sure Ryan's going to hurry us up on that, but the dynamics of that group, because that's where I really do believe in the senior players. I really believe in that everybody in that group feeling excited about the opportunity that's in front of them from their different perspectives. It's not just young, we're growing and we're going to get better and better. It's senior players that have been there and want to stay at the level or want to just give back and contribute. And I think there's huge value in that.
So just to move it on slightly, not a complete segue. Simon, I'm aware, you're now employing sort of full-time scouts at the club now, and Matt Jansen's arrived at the club also. My question is, where are you sending those guys to watch players? And a second question, do you feel that the professional academy system is producing players that have got relevance for first teams like yourself, or is it a different type of player and game that is being played out across the EPPP program?
Okay. So let me deal with the second one first, and then we'll come back to our scouting structures and thinking and so forth. I think I really don't I don't buy into this kind of myth about non-league football and what works at this level. There are some stuff, but I genuinely think if you get, a coach that's clear about the way that they want to play, you recruit cleanly against that, you work on those things, is ultimately any player can fit any system at any level, right? And I think one of the things I learned, the reason I believe that, whether I'm right or wrong, my experience with New York City in the MLS was the strongest one on that. Is when we took over the franchise, and we did our due diligence. What works at the level? What do you think? We employed American guys that were in the market and so forth. They came back to said, look, you can't really play at this level. It's really about athleticism. It's really about desire. It's this, that, and the other. And from City, our brand perspective was that, there's one line, beautiful football. If you go into the building there, you'll see it everywhere, beautiful football. So it's like, we have to play beautiful football. We tried the first year to be efficient, to play MLS type football, if you like. But then we said, no, we have to do it our way. So then Patrick Vieira went in, and we went with our methodology and so forth. And then again, like you see with probably like Roberto Martinez at Swansea the first 3 months, or like Pep Guardiola the first 2 months at Man City, a hell of a load of mistakes as the teams tried to adapt into that style. But if you keep going with it, if you do the right work, you get the right players, get the right perseverance. In the end, you master it. And you saw Barrow go up from this league last year, playing a really attractive blend of football. You see a number of teams up and down. Guy, I'm sure you do, League One, League Two, that play excellent football and are successful at the level, as well as teams that are really efficient that are successful at the level. So I believe at the end of the day, you just got to make your choice of which way you want to go and then recruit against that. So going back to your point, Ryan, sorry for the long-winded answer, but I think the academy system is producing excellent players, better than ever, I'm sure, better than ever, because the volume of work and the expertise that's going into them, the level just continues to grow. But I think it's about, one, finding the right ones, doing the right scouting to understand all the qualities that they can bring into your level, fitting them into a framework, and then giving them time and patience and support to develop. So yeah, that's my take on that, is that you have to choose your way. Don't believe the hype, what works. Don't believe anything anybody else says. Go your way and stick to it and commit to it. On our scouting level, we have employed part-time scouts.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a real opportunity for, from a club side of point of view, a real effective way of working with scouts. We've got a scout that's a lecturer on a sports with UCFB, access to lots of students, access to lots of technology and tools, geographically placed really, really well in the south of England, for the access to the London market and so forth. And then in the north, we've got a couple of guys here that will work like the more sort of early young players in the men's football scene, and as well as the more broad sort of northern category as well. So you sort of blend their day experience with their part-time experience with you, and you almost get you get a full-time employee, but I think you get more than that really off it. So yeah, that's the way we're set up.
And a sort of final question for me before I give the guys a chance to ask a final question as well. Have you started to think about next season? Is part of your recruiting plan a potential? I'm sure knowing a bit about you and your due diligence and your methodology, I presume you're starting to think about League Two as well.
We have to. Just like you have to think about staying in the in the National League for another year or 2 years or 3 years. You know what I mean? You have to think about all the different scenarios. And so yeah, we would always do that. I mean, I remember at Sunderland when we were bottom of the league, but in touching distance of staying up, and Ellis Short was selling the club, but might keep it. So you have you're playing around all these situations. So we had a go down with money budget. We had a target list. We had a stay up with money, and kick on list. We had a stay up with no money target list, and we had to go down with no money target list. And you have to work on all these scenarios because one of them will drop, and you have to be ready. Unfortunately, I didn't stick around to see that through, but yeah, it was a good experience to have to deal with the different situations.
Brilliant. Tony, have you got a final question for Simon?
Yes, Simon. I was just thinking along the lines of your coaching staff. Are you also, we talked about recruitment scenarios there. Are you also succession planning, keeping your eye out for good coaches, or what's your way of doing that sort of succession planning?
Yeah. I think we're doing that all the time. We're always aware of just good people in the industry, whether a coach, physio, sports scientist, scout, whatever. We like to try and find chemistry as we go out and find people and that we think fit the way we want to do it. What I would say is any sporting director, it's a difficult one to get right, but you have to be authentically 100% behind the guy that you got. Like, you just have to be a million percent. Even when it's going wrong, you have to be 100% because the system is about the whole thing winning, and it's almost like cheating on your girlfriend. It's you have to be. For me personally, I can't start doing any of that stuff until we've made a decision that we're going to part. Until that moment when it doesn't become right anymore, then I'm not starting to be proactive on anything else, because I think that you're undermining the guy that you got. So yeah, I think the sporting director's position, as I see it, is, we know we'll get into it later on, is a supporting position for the manager. They may report into you, as is the case here, but you're in total support of the guy that's probably in the most difficult position in the club.
And Guy, a sort of a final question from yourself to Simon.
No, mate, I'm really interested to listen. I was peacefully listening, taking on board a lot of his exciting and his different ideas on things. It was good.
Yeah, Simon.
I was just going to say, Ryan, sorry to jump in.
That's fine.
This is the part where we usually try to manufacture a loan deal between the guy and the guest is, but I think we'll pass on that one today.
Well, I could get you a list if you want, guys. Some recommendations.
I've got a list, mate. Don't you worry about that.
Simon, thank you so much for that. I think it's so clear that you've got such a well thought out plan and process there, and for lots of reasons we'll all be wishing County really well this season. Thanks
ever so much, Ryan. Thanks for the time, guys. Great to speak.
No worries, and hopefully you can stay on for the rest of the hour, and we'll get you back involved in the panel discussion shortly. But let's move on now and bring in Sam from that'll not be you, Sam. That'll be the video. Bring in Sam from Football Manager. First of all, Sam, how are things at Football Manager? The new game coming out very shortly.
Yeah, doing well, Ryan. Thanks. I know it's a difficult time for a lot of people, a lot of industries, but from our perspective, it's been a really, really good 12 months. The previous edition, Football Manager 2020, has done really well. I don't know if you saw, but we gave the game free to play a couple of times during the last game cycle. So back in April, when obviously all the lockdown began. So that's driven a lot of conversation, a lot of exposure for the game, but also we've been doing quite a lot in terms of the mental health side of things as well. So that's been really rewarding. So we've had, charities advertising in the game in terms of the LED banners. We've had, people like Movember, the Prince's Trust, a wide variety of people. So the game's done really well. Last edition, over 2 million sales across all platforms. So yeah, and we're looking for hopefully something similar this year. So it's been a really good year for us.
Fantastic, Sam. And you guys have been a really big supporter of the Football Transfer Forum, which of course Tony and I are really appreciative of. But I think it's worth us sort of sharing an anecdote in terms of, I guess, kind of where the kind of relationship started. Tony and I deliver agent education for people thinking about becoming agents or wanting to understand that world a little bit. And up at a course at Hibernian, one of the tasks that we give the guys is to give them a sort of choice of where is a good place to look at finding good young players. And some of the staff from Hibs were on the course, and they decided to write down an additional answer into the list that Tony and I had given, and they included Football Manager. And so we pressed on them, and they were the game Football Manager. So talk to us a little bit about this slide that we've got up, but also this evolution from game into resource. Because I think it's a sort of fantastic evolution for you guys.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Ryan. Yeah, and likewise. I mean, I joined the studio April of 2019, so I was at Fulham before that in the commercial capacity. So yeah, I've been to a couple. Obviously, attended the Etihad and Anfield last year. Really enjoyed both of them. So yeah, echo those sentiments. In terms of the game, I think everybody knows Miles Jacobson, the studio director. His core philosophy, if we're talking about sporting director roles, is all about realism. So he tries his emphasis to everybody is to make the game as real as possible and as much as we can do, and obviously try and keep that balance between that and obviously playing a game and making it enjoyable for our players. But yeah, we get anecdotes like that all the time. The Hibernian example you gave in terms of people using it, and I just say it's a really good reference point. It's not like an Opta or Stats Perform or whatever, where it's event data that's driving, performance related stuff. But, there's some really good stuff around, career histories, transfer values, passport information. It's that stuff that sometimes you might not get anywhere else. So we've had approaches from all sorts of clubs, from all range of tiers, with ad hoc requests. I had one a few months ago regarding one recruitment analyst wanted to know about a player's relationship with coaches. So he wanted to look at someone's transfer history and look at who coached him during those times, because that way it's a good way to pick the phone up to say to Coach X, you know, what's this guy like? Is he a good person to have around? Is he a good influence? You know, there's so many different examples that you could use regarding Football Manager and the data that, you know, can apply to the real world.
Yeah, talk to us about these 1,000 people that we see here on the slide. You know, just sort of rough numbers in terms of, you know, how many countries is that across? What data do they feed into you? How do they do it?
Yeah, so it's so these are all volunteers as well. So these are guys who give up their time, and this is the impact of the game. Really, it's so popular. I know Guy and I had a chat obviously before about his amazing stats in the game. So everybody really knows who Football Manager are. So these guys are across all sorts of industries. We even have some, you know, scouts who do it in their spare time. But this is global, so this is across the world. England and UK, obviously, there's a lot more detail. I believe we have researchers at club level, whether that's just hardcore fans who will go to games, or, you know, even scouts. But I believe that's down to the national north level. Obviously, areas like the Americas is a little more spread out, let's just say. So you'll have somebody who's, you know, somebody who represents the whole region as opposed to club level. But, you know, it's like I say, there's the people that put a lot of their own time into helping get the data as accurate as possible. And to be honest, it impacts the game. So it helps out in terms of how the match engine plays, the scenarios you play in the game, they all impact. So it's a long process. I believe there's a 200-page document I think they have to read through and abide by to make sure that everything.
I've read that document, Sam. Yeah, it's a really interesting piece.
I was going to say it's not for the faint-hearted, but you can see the commitment in terms of the level of detail we try to go into. So that's on that really.
Just one from me, Sam. And this has been fantastic for us at the Football Transfer Forum. You know, we've got our sort of strap line at the bottom is insight, networking, and results. And that's what we hope to provide in our webinars and in our live events. And, you know, we get a really good range of companies coming to our events. And it's sort of like a matchmaking service now. I think Football Manager swipe right.
I was just going to say swipe right. You took my line.
Oh, sorry. Well, Football Manager swiped right and ended up having a relationship with Sci Sports. Tell us something a little bit more about that.
Yeah, of course. So Giles, who owns Sci Sports, is an absolute FN nut. He loves the game. And prior to my time joining the studio, I know he'd had initial conversations with Tom Markham, who obviously you guys know very well, who I work for. And so there's always been, you know, bubbling conversation in the background. How can we work together? You know, and nothing really ever came into fruition. But luckily this year, we've in the game for FM21, where there's been a real focus on the stats and analysis side of the game, and again, talk about realism. It's about how do we get these, you know, things like XG that you see on the TV now, and obviously the guys at Opta are producing and analysts are using day to day. So it's, well, how can we get an FM version of XG into the game? And met Jesper, that you guys obviously you presented on here before. We spoke with Jesper over at Anfield, like it was probably this time last year, I imagine, December. So and then the conversation started from there really, and it's been a really good partnership. So they afforded us their time to with their data scientists, and basically they work together with our in-house statisticians to basically build an FM version of an XG model. So and as part of that, Sci Sports obviously get all the branding in the game. So it's a really good partnership because they get exposure. You obviously being a B2C product, you know, their logos everywhere, and in terms of the analysis section, you know, there's more questions for people to ask who Sci Sports are, and likewise we get the expertise from Sci Sports to be able to develop that in the game. So partnerships work really well, and I hope it continues for a long time.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sam. Brilliant.
Yeah. So Sam, if there was a club out there, or there was people interested to use the game more as a resource than the game, what's the approach? You know, how could they start that conversation? Is it into you? Is it into Tom? Is it?
Yeah, it's either. So ping. I've got contact details. Just send us an email. Any inquiries, that's fine. With GDPR, obviously it's a bit dry and a bit dull, but everybody has to go through it. It's kind of like it's a form filling exercise just to make sure that you know how you're securing your data exactly and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, our research team are happy to help. I'll also mention that our platform's now online internally, so we're able to manipulate the data a lot more succinctly, a lot more easier. There's potential for insights as well, so some nice graphs and charts that clubs can use. We don't just work with clubs though. We've also got space in academia where we help with research. Media companies have approached us, you know, for content. So in terms of, you know, some little snippets from FM. So yeah, so it's a wide variety of companies and industries that speak to us. But yeah, any clubs, anybody that wants to have any questions, either message me on LinkedIn or send an email. More than happy to help.
Yeah, so I'm interested in terms of the internal conversations that you have with Miles and Tom and all those guys, in terms of how you're trying to position yourself within the football industry, if you like. As you've alluded to, you're not trying to be an opter, you're not trying to be those type of guys, but obviously you're in partnerships with the likes of with Jesper at Size Sports. Is this a space that you're going to continue to take steps into?
Yeah, well, we're always interested in partnerships, and in terms of if they're the right fit, you know, it's something we always talk about. But in terms of your first point, I think like I said before, I think FM is the database is a key reference point, and it gets mentioned so many times by people within the industry. It's definitely something that, you know, it should be looked at as a, you know, either to validate somebody's beliefs or questions already, whether that goes to scouts, directors of football, whoever in the club, you know, from that side. But I definitely feel strongly that it is a very good reference point. It may not give you all the answers you need, but it definitely points you in the right direction, I'd say.
And Guy, just to bring you in on this, obviously there's a whole cacophony of sources of data for clubs, people operating in clubs to use. How are you positioning what to use? Have you used Football Manager as a resource at all in your position?
Not particularly in this position right now, but I used it as head of recruitment. I've got no qualms in saying that. You know, I'm a regular believer in taking all forms of information and data, fag packet, you know, that managers used to give me a name of a player, to then going and doing a bit of details into you know, a bit more due diligence, because you get past a name on a piece of paper and it's stuck on your desk.
Yeah.
From managers. So and Simon will back me up on that. He knows that. That's why he's smiling. You know, it's some of the ideas of people's recruitment ideas and how much process and work goes into actually getting a player over the line. It's phenomenal. So going and doing a bit of digging in the obviously FM and checking out the details and reiterating your thoughts and beliefs, but also your biases. You know, the difficulty you have sometimes is you're set in your ways, like these managers, like myself, and it's challenging your own thoughts. And I want to know if this player does this player does that. I worked with a couple of your, I would say, free colleagues before, and they were excellent, by the way. They were excellent. The due diligence they did into Plymouth Argyle and the work they did behind the scenes to give you the information you speak about that's sometimes untapped is a great way. So them 1,000 volunteers or them 500 volunteers you've got are doing the work to the analytical high standard. And that comes away from me because I'm a football man and I might go down one path, but you need a mixture of people's ideas before you make a decision. And it shouldn't just be the fag packet, that's the player we're bringing in. It should be challenged, it should be checked, and they're a great way, and I'm a big believer in them.
Excellent.
Yeah, I agree, Guy. I was going to say, just to back
I
your
know
point.
you are. I know you're going to agree.
I know. No, but I was going to say likewise, if you can't solely rely on data either. Sometimes that's the eyeballs looking at the pitch, you know, that there's nothing that beats that as well. So yeah.
And Tony, from an agent's perspective, you know, you're always looking for, a 17-year-old that is playing in the first team football. You know, first team football, he's got to be there for a reason. And from your understanding, are agents and using this as a resource more and more as well?
Well, actually, Ryan, we've got a question as well on this very point. It's from Osman, and he says, thanks for your question, Osman. It says, do you find that football intermediaries approaching you for intel on specific players or clubs? And that's a question to Sam. I mean, I've totally missed the Football Manager. I think I'm the wrong generation. I haven't even played the game, so apologies, Sam. And I don't use it professionally. No, I tend to rely on other sources of information. But what do you think about that question, Sam? Do intermediaries approach you?
Not directly, but I do know the game gets passed on to people within the industry prior to launch. So, and I think agents are a part of that group. Where a small handful of people get the game just to validate the data that's in there. You know, you'll always, whether it's footballers, directors of football, scouts, agents, if things crop up, you go, hang on, why is this guy's wages like ridiculously high when, it's a lower level. So it's, like I say, it's more small group that's managed by that.
And when's the game coming out, Sam? When's it out?
So officially launches on the 24th of November. So yeah,
I'll send you my address and
yeah.
You see how he says? See how he didn't say yes?
Tony, if you want
for free,
if you want a code, Tony, just let me know, and you'll probably be too preoccupied playing that than any more of these forums. So
yeah, you've got to find something to do in lockdown. So
yeah, exactly. I know it's a terrible time for everybody, but yeah, like I said before, obviously the first lockdown, really, I think it really helped a lot of people out in terms of escapism. So it's hopefully this time around it's not as tight as that. But
yeah, very good. Thanks, Sam. I've just put the slide back up there so people can just quickly take down your email address there, and I'm sure you'll share your LinkedIn address in the chat as well. Really appreciate your time, Sam, and good luck with the game this month. And of course, it'd be interesting to see how you guys continue to get closer into the industry as a resource as well. So thanks very much.
No, cheers.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay, well, it brings on to our panel discussion. Does every club need a sporting director? Tony, I'm going to come to you first, mainly because you come up with a question this month. So, what's your thoughts?
I did come up with a question, and it was mainly, because I knew obviously we had Simon on, and Simon's got such a wealth of experience at a number of different clubs. And I think, the old, I suppose the traditional structure of a chairman appointing a manager who then does everything at the club, that's how English football has been developed. We have a manager, when you think of Arsene Wenger and you think of Alex Ferguson, they were sort of omnipresent at the club. There were sporting directors, managers, head coaches, scouts. There were the whole package, if you like. And obviously, as football's gone on, and I think I'd be right in saying the sporting director model is probably a German model, and we've sort of adopted it. And obviously, at the big clubs have adopted it. We've had a lot more foreign influx of not just coaches but staff at clubs, and I just think big clubs, it really fits really well. And I just wondered, I was looking for the answer was how far and in all scenarios does it work? So does every club need a sporting director whatever league you're in?
Okay, well, let's put that to Simon. Simon, should your position exist? But I guess the pertinent question is how do you make it effective? So two questions really. The big one: should every club have one? And how do you make it effective?
Okay. So my take on should every club have one? No. I don't think you have to have the name of the title.
Yeah.
What's more important is if we just threw all the titles in the bin and you just looked at the group of people that are running a football club, you need somebody that is accountable. for the football performance, and you need somebody that is the conductor of the orchestra, if you like. And then those people in that room should figure out who is the most qualified and best suited to do that job. So where it, you know, I always looked at Tottenham for years thinking, well, they haven't got a director of football, like as such, you know, head of recruitment, Daniel Levy's the guy. Now, ultimately, yes, because he's taking the overall responsibility for the overall running of the football department, and therefore, you know, that person is going to make sure that all the pieces are joined up and making sure that they're working well together. Daniel Levy is in, depending on your opinion of him, is well suited to do that role because of his, I think his commitment to getting value and efficiency. Really, I think his mindset of that. You'll have another chairman that wouldn't be well suited to it, you know. So, and then in that case, that person probably does need an expert to be that person. You also have sporting directors. You have so many different models of a sporting director right across. Certainly in our country, you have a sporting director who is the old head of recruitment, has no new autonomy, no new authority than the old head of recruitment. They're just now called the sporting director or technical director because it's a sexy title. You've got the sporting director who is sat on the outside, if you like, of the technical aspects of the game, and is a little bit more of like, I do think that's more of the German model. Really, is more of a leadership position on the board. And then you've got a little bit of a hybrid model. So, look, I think in our evolution in this country at the moment, people have thrown the title around a lot more, and I suppose in some ways that's good because it's recognizing that there's other models out there from just doing what we've always done. But I still think you see so many differences in the way that title is done, is performed, that it just proves to me that you don't have to have it. You know, it's about the structure that works for you in your club.
And of course, I think a big sort of catalyst for trying to get this into our game, Simon, was this sort of this filling of the knowledge gap in between the sort of coaching, managerial staff, recruitment staff into ownership, and how much of your role, for example, is managing upwards into the owner, and how sort of coachable is he in that respect?
It's I would say it's 30% of the job. Wow. It's constant, you know, in terms of constant dialogue, and I think again, to the education aspect is that, again, if you split that 30, you probably split it 30 in terms of, like, some is proactive in terms of, you know, just constantly painting a picture of what it should look like and how we're getting closer to that. So you're educating them as it and keeping him satisfied in the sense that there's an information flow up there. You know, obviously not every day is a good day, so like you have to just tell the truth from what's going on. I think that's a big part of it. And then also taking from, in our case, Mark down through the club. So, you know, what he's recognizing and seeing, because in the end of the day, it has to be, in our case, obviously the club produces a bit of money, but the owner is putting in the additional investment on top of that. And he has to be comfortable with the business that he's got. So, it's managing it back down as well through the club.
Guy, what are your thoughts? Obviously, at Leicester, there's not that sort of traditional, that sort of typical sport director role, but it seems to be working whatever's in place at Leicester. How
director of football?
Yeah, director of football. But in terms of, do you see that person has got a sort of a bigger sort of overarching view? And again, this is part of the question, really, in terms of getting some clarity on what's the director of football versus what's the sporting director.
It's a mixture of names. You know, there's, like you said, the 30% he might be working in this department, that department, working with Brendan closer. So what we have as a group, obviously a football club, is a chief executive and a director of football, and then obviously a first team manager, very, very close to the director of football, but he obviously works up and it manages it up. So there's so many different departments now. why not? Why not have another helping hand that wants the club to go in the direction of the owners? You know, and what I always have an understanding of is, well, now myself working in different multiple departments as I've finished, is that they're all very different. They're all very difficult. They're all very easy in certain elements, and it's understanding them I would say departments. A sporting director can manage a lot of the day-to-day dealings that the manager can probably take away from himself and put onto the coaching ground, and it's managing them different disruptive thoughts that come into his head to be able to be passed on to Simon. I would say why not? I would say why not get one in every club so that the head coach can concentrate on the coaching, because that's what they're doing all these badges for, and can stay out of business that they don't need to be involved with. The academy manager can deal with what he does, and then obviously pass on information to Simon. Simon can pass it up, and same as John Ruckin does in our organisation. So I'd say why not? Why not be disruptive? Why not be show innovation, show creativity? The clubs aren't working. A lot of them. Something's wrong in football. Why do we have to go down the same way we've always gone? Because of the one man does this all. He can't do it all. There's not enough hours in the day to deal with everything. So why not get a helping hand and point the club in a positive direction to make the club successful? Because I imagine that's what a lot of people get involved in football, to be successful.
So Simon, back to yourself. If we're accepting that this this role of either director of football or sporting director, okay, it might not be for absolutely every club, but it can be a positive force in clubs. What prepares somebody for that role? I know there's a couple of education courses out there and what have you, but in reality, what is the understanding required to be able to perform in that role?
Yeah, the fundamental, like, you have to understand. I think the basics of a director of football is the way you want your team to play, and then the recruitment against that. They're your two biggest pillars in it. And again, if you were to get one of them wrong and one right, you'd want the recruitment of the players just the best players ever that you can get. In the end of the day, you get that right, you're not going to get sacked probably. And then there's a difference between not getting sacked and being successful. And I think the being successful part is about the alignment of all those other bits and pieces against what it is that you're trying to achieve in the budget that you've got and all that kind of stuff. So I think what prepares you from doing it is you have to have some experience in those areas. So you either have to have had, I think it's, of course, I had the experience of being at Southampton when Clive Woodward came across into director football after being the England manager, who was a manager in the sense that it's international, so it's less week by week, and obviously the structure of the rugby game, it is big picture. That position that you do have a big influence on the game. But I feel like, and Clive had some incredible ideas. I learned loads of him. He fundamentally changed the way I think. And I think he had a lasting legacy on the club actually way after he left. But where it fell down was his relationship on the technical aspects and the player aspects within the game. So I think you do need that. It's very, very hard to transition from outside of the sport into the sport if you can't at least speak the same language as the coach in terms of like football language and player language and attributes and so forth, because there has to be a level of trust and respect built up between those two positions. If it's not there, it's not probably going to work. So I think young people out there, I know the courses that are out there. I know a lot of people that are in around the space that are trying to progress their careers and so forth. And I think the best thing for you is to try and get into a decision-making capacity where you can actually start to practice decision-making. I think the theory is good, it's helpful, but I would always orientate more to getting out there and doing it at whatever level you can do it.
And of course, the other element to, I guess, your role as well, Simon, is that you're a manager of people as well, and that person, that's an added element to the role that perhaps somebody could be a great recruiter of players. But you've got for pro rata to the level of the club, a large staff that all work into you as well. So I imagine that eats up a lot of your time, and you need to be effective and efficient in that as well.
It can do, Ryan. It depends a little bit about the way you manage. I think that, if you get your culture right, they don't need management a lot of the time. It's right people doing the right things, and you support it. And again, I think you flip it around, so that the director of football goes at the underneath, just almost giving all these guys the tools they need to just go and do their job, and let them be good human beings amongst themselves. And they don't tend to need management in that way. But you're right. At the end of the day, football, we're not making, like Sam, we're not making a computer game. We're not making it's a human business. It's a people business at the end of the day. It's a performance of human people business. So you need to have all the care, empathy, understanding, alignment, all those things that people need to operate well. And you're right. If I was, if I or other people, colleagues, John, were just about recruiting and the X's and the O's in terms of the tactical thing, it wouldn't work. You have to get out there and you have to be able to sell and share your ideas and get people connected. But I think in just terms of the absolute critical part, can you be a leader and transition in without any football understanding? I would say it's going to be really, really hard. Whereas if you've got a football understanding, can you get a culture that where other people can, you can build that over time? Then I would say probably you can.
Tony, coming back to yourself, we've seen some clubs adopt the sporting director role and then take it away when a new manager comes in, and he wants to have the final say on transfers and what have you.
Yeah.
So, over what time period do you see this sort of flattening out a little bit and becoming a sort of more of a permanent fixture?
Well, Ryan, I personally would like to see more sporting directors at all levels, if that's possible, and if finance is a big issue at this current time. But I'd like to see more sporting directors at clubs at whatever level. I don't think that you need to sort of say, oh, well, they should be just in the Premier League and the Championship. But I think on the finance point, and also on you bring a manager in, then you give him. I think you might have been referring to Middlesbrough there, were you? A little bit. Because Middlesbrough sort of went... No. Well, my hometown club, Middlesbrough, we had Tony Pulis playing a certain way. And what would happen would be Tony would pick the players he liked to play in the style he liked, and they'd sign players. And obviously we had a back four of centre backs who were all about 6'3" and playing a certain style. And I'm not criticising Tony Pulis' style at all, because it was very effective.
Yep.
But he signs a lot of players, and then when his term ends and you pick a new manager who has a different philosophy, and he looks at the group of players and says, well, I want somebody not who can win it and dominate and not a long throw expert or whatever it is. I want players who can play and pass. You have to get a whole new number of players in that club who can do the job for the new manager. So in the end, the finances don't add up, because getting players out who don't fit your new manager is difficult and expensive. And also getting new players in that do fit your new manager it can be expensive. So, when Simon talked about, what did he say? He said, get on your playing philosophy and get on your recruitment. Them two issues are probably at the forefront of your sporting director's mind. Obviously, he's got more things to do in and around the club. But if those two remain constant and you pick the right head coach, you don't need the churn of staff that you might have seen. And I mean, playing staff and also coaching staff that you might see at some of those clubs that just go from manager to manager, maybe flip the style every now and again. So for me, it can potentially be a saving in a club because of what I explained about the turnover in the playing staff, and the players are always the biggest expense at the club. And if you don't get it right, I'm just sort of segueing a little bit, but it would be lovely to be able to say, right, these are the top sporting directors in the country, and these are the top sporting directors because of X, Y, and Z. But it's such a complicated business. It's very difficult to benchmark the guys who are successful, the guys who are, what are you measuring them on? And I think that's an issue as well that we probably have to sort of start getting our heads around.
Yeah, I mean,
Guy, Ryan, if I could just jump into a 2-second thing, just I guess just to bring Tony's point to life. but also to add something in the sense that, you know, when I came at Sunderland, it was the 7th manager in 5 years. David was the first manager to be appointed in the summer. So every other manager prior to that would have been a mid-season change. We all know what mid-season change. Why do you do mid-season change? It's because typically you're failing. Yeah. And you saw a club there that shifted from Sam Allardyce, Dig Advocat, Gus Poyet, David Moyes. You know, you're talking about the opposites of styles each time. So by the time we got there, I arrived after David, but after we got there, we just had a hodgepodge of squad that people that had been signed, you know, 3 years ago in the Gus Poyet side, someone that had been signed by Sam Allardyce, and we had such a difficult. And David's quite a flexible coach, and he was, but it was his hardest challenge to try and figure out a way of playing with the group of players. And because of the money that had been spent, we had no money to refresh the squad. So our job was really just, could you get past that last season in the Premier League and then recycle it in the summer afterwards. But in that time they had 3 directors of football. So it's not about the position, it's about the culture, it's about the attitude, it's about committing at a board and leadership level to a way. And I think Leicester, you know, there probably isn't a better club, I would say, in terms of a growth story and a growth club than Leicester, in terms of, you know, they've changed managers, you know, through one reason or another, changed managers over time, but continual upward growth to the point where, Leicester look like doing what they're doing. They could do this every year from now on, moving forward.
No, great point. And Guy, you know, internally at Leicester, how is that? How much is that word sort of continuity and layering on what you're doing discussed?
In regards to my department, you know, it's constant relationship with the director of football and trying to get the lads opportunities into the first team and trying to make elite players. You know, we know what we've got to do, and Simon touched on it earlier, you know, getting good people in positions and letting them work, you know, get on with it. You know, you've got I suppose, a benchmark to hit and make sure players get into the first team and make sure players get into the first team from your loans and things like that. So there's definitely elements of continuation and consistency from the pillars that have been at the club for long periods of time. And that just isn't, you know, John Rudkin, it's Bill Wall, it's Dale, does safety with the children. And, you know, there's loads of people that have been there 20 odd years, but have been producing high standard work to stay in them positions and not having the same experiences for them periods of time as they've been in. So, you know, we said earlier, the lifer, but they've had multiple different opportunities and experiences, positive and negative, via the football club. So they've ended up coming through them patches of positivity into positivity, you know, hence the most horriblest event not so long back to, you know, when the club was in a financial ruin and had to take massive pay cuts to stay at the football club, the pillars. So there's loads of them different situations have gone on, and I'm just happy to be here, if I'm honest, because it's my club that I grew up with, and then to come through again via different departments, I'm seeing different opportunities for me, but I'm also seeing myself as growing into becoming a pillar, which is, you know, unbelievable. 3 years at any football club for me seems like a lifetime considering my career. So it's unbelievable where I've been now.
Brilliant. Can I ask you? Sorry, Ryan. Can I ask you? Do you think? Obviously, you're in a really good position to see. You know, you've played the game. You know, people are asking about, do you have to have played the game to understand the other side of things? Is that the sort of direction that you're looking to go towards, that sporting director, the role?
My experience has been vast since I finished. You know, I started a recruitment company up in football recruitment. You know, I was one of the wonder boys on Football Manager, you know, and also, you know, had a reasonable lower league career. But I now have gone into recruitment, you know, now I've been a manager, now I'm a coach, you know, I would like the idea that I could help run a football club, yes.
Yeah.
You know, and with my ideas on coaching, recruitment, I could sit and have a discussion with most, and I'm pretty confident to do that. With working with business and boards, and, you know, dealing with multi-million-pound deals and dealing with multi-million-pound budgets, yes, I think I can do that. but I also think I can, go and cut the grass if needed to, which I used to do at Nuneaton for the training ground. And I'm willing to do them things if needed for the football club. And
Guy, you should see my garden. To be fair,
you've probably got a big enough garden, the amount of money you've made out of the game.
No, I'm actually letting it grow. It's back to nature. So
well, if you keep paying me as well as you are, I'll come around and cut your grass.
Sam, I think that there might be an opportunity. I think the game needs to change from football manager to sporting director. You can have that one for free. But in terms of sporting directors, they're obviously all named on the game, and do you see them maybe playing a bigger sort of role in the game moving forward?
Well, funny you say that, Ryan, because you've teed up quite nicely. So we are looking at, advancing that in the game a little bit more, as potentially. It's always one of the ideas that's floated in terms of, we've got a wide community of fans who, who love all that sort of stuff in the game as well. So at the moment, we do have, directors of football in the game, and obviously they have certain roles that the manager interacts with. Yeah.
It's quite funny because I've had a few comments from bad decisions I've made.
Not on any of my saves, but
no, I've had some bad decisions made. My mates have texted me, because like I said, I grew up with the game, and we still avid players online against each other in various different walks of life we're now in. And I've made a few bad decisions as the loans manager at Leicester City, and they've all laughed about it and things like that. So it's been I've had a few screenshots and stuff. So there's a lot of proof, you see, Ryan. I'm not just making this stuff up.
I know.
Do you know something though? I think this generation of people of young people who've been playing Football Manager, they're trading players. They're sort of, it's sending them in that direction of, right, what do you want to be? You don't want to be a player anymore. You want to be a sporting director. Do you know what I mean? Because of football.
One of the most exciting parts of it, Tony, was the initial setup of the club. And when you walk into the job and you have the announcement, now you do, obviously, you have the announcement and you've got to do your scenarios, or you set up a scenario feature on it where you're working against different scenarios, different situations, the club's skint, you've got to get rid of the players, various different things like that. I've walked into them scenarios at various clubs. I had to do a multiple amount of transactions in 3 months when I was at Chesterfield. Had to make sure that all the dots were ticked and the I's were covered and everything, as the saying goes. And I was in situations at Notts County where I'm having to release players, and I'm laughing about scenarios I'm putting myself into, and then I'm being threatened by one of the players, and it's just not on the game. It's just not on the game. There's various different things. I'm sitting there as a grown man, 6'2", laughing. This lad's threatening me, and I'm thinking, you can't threaten me, mate. But mentally, I'm trying to be a professional man and going, yeah, I can see where you're coming from, mate. Realistically, the club wants you out. Here's a nice little payment to leave, and I'm going, yeah, that don't happen on FM. But hey, listen, I've dealt with it anyway. You got paid off and went.
Good stuff. Right, I want to get through some of the questions before we run out of time. So, Simon, quite a lot of questions to yourself. One question from Josh, who says, first of all, he believes every club should have a sporting director of football of some description, and also that he's a Manchester United fan, and can't get his head around why Manchester United haven't gone down that road. Obviously, they're just on the doorstep from Stockport. I won't ask you maybe specifically on United, but there are still a few big clubs that don't have somebody in this position. Is it a matter of time, or do you think clubs like United will hold off for other reasons?
Well, I mean, they will have. They clearly got reasons, because they've had enough scrutiny and media pressure to have one, and so they've not gone down the road of getting one to this point, and I'm sure they've got their reasons. To go back to what I said before, I just don't see. I think it's more about roles and responsibilities than it is about titles. So if your chief exec or your football development person, or there's a community or a committee that come together to take those responsibilities, I personally got no problem with that. Like, just because there's not a person that you can lay the accountability with. As long as those activities are happening in the club and they're happening well, then I think we should, you don't need to get too emotional about it all. Yeah. But I think United have made some good talent decisions in the last period, and they've got their idea of their plan, and it looks like that the people inside the club are joined up against that plan. So so supporters will always have their expectations, and that's fine. And the club might not be performing against those expectations, and they will want a reason for it. But sometimes just stuff doesn't happen as quickly as you want it to, or you don't get the player that you wanted to, or you don't get the result that you want to. It can be small factors. It can't just be a single, because we haven't got that one thing. It's not working. There's a lot of clubs with directors of football that are not performing.
Another question for you, Simon, that got touched on a little bit earlier. Having played the game yourself, what percentage of that do you really think has helped you into the roles that you've had and into the roles you now? And is that purely on the networking side of things, of people know you, or was there or is there still actual understanding out of playing the game that you're able to apply now?
It helps. I think do you know what I really believe? One of the things I really believe in is players coming out of play and putting them straight into positions where they can be on the coaching side or the corporate side or whatever, because I feel like it doesn't take long for you to lose that feel of what it really takes to win, in terms of the commitment, changes you need to make in your life, and so forth. So, me at 42 years old, trying to remember what it was like when I was 18, 19, 20, it's a long time ago. The game's changed a lot. I was not playing at the levels that I've worked at. So in a way, it's a little bit useless. But I do think your point about the network is strong. I think that, there's people that I've met in this job now agents who were players when I was a young player, and just having those small points of, we didn't know each other well, but just have that common experience, and that common just gets you a little bit further down the line, that mutual understanding, that mutual trust, and it helps, of course. And I don't like to say it's essential, because I know people like, Dave Fallows at Liverpool wasn't a player. He was, and I remember working with him at Prozone, and came totally out, and he came with a real fresh approach, that was different from, because I'd played and I'd been in that circle. I did it the way everyone else did it. That helped me to a level to get in, but I wasn't changing the game. Whereas someone like Dave is, because he's coming in and with a totally fresh approach. So it's not one or the other. I think you got to be able to flex and adapt. I think that's probably the point.
Yeah. Another question from Matthew, slightly different topic, but not a million miles away. Matthew's down in Australia, and he wants to ask about networking strategies for developing your career in football. What would your advice be to people? I guess especially for people that maybe haven't played.
Yeah, my advice now is much easier than it's ever been before. Just do something. Write an article. Do some analysis. Offer a service. Scout for free. Do something. Just do something. Don't wait to be picked. Kind of pick yourself. Just do something and then share it and see. And then if get feedback. If it's good, keep doing it. Something will happen. If it's not good, why is it not good? Adapt it. Change it. I don't think there's any excuse for. Don't just send your CV in. Please give me a job. Please help. Don't do something. Get out there. Do something at whatever level that you can do it at. Do something. Contribute. Do it for free. Get out there and do it.
Tony, you'd echo those sentiments?
I think that's brilliant advice. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. We are in a difficult situation, because I always say to people, go to as many conferences, go to many events, go to as many matches, lower level matches that you can actually be in, under 18s, under 23s, where there's scouts and there's coaching staff and there's parents and there's people there. Don't go to the big games where you're going to be a face in a crowd of 50,000. Go to the smaller events, but also get out of your comfort zone. I sort of go to university events if it's an interesting topic about China or whatever, and I think that's great. But obviously we have to sort of do more on Zoom calls, but people are more accessible as well. So if you can get a chat with somebody on a Zoom call, it's a lot easier now, and people are more open to it. They're more accessible than ever.
Yeah. One final question, because I know we're running out of time, and to you, Simon, it's a great question from Josh, and he talks about fan representatives working with the club in terms of the culture of the club. County have got a big fan base, but what I'd also say is he's quite an impassioned fan base as well. what scope is there currently, and what do you think there should be in terms of, when I talk about sort of managing upwards into the ownership, but something I've spoke about a lot as well, about dare I say, like, educating the fan base as well. I don't know if that's too patronising, but what's your thoughts on that?
I like resistance. I like the sentiment. I think at the end of the day, we're here. Why are we here? We're here as a place in the community which is supported by members of the community that come and play. So in the end of the day, you have to remember that reason. Then you just have to say the two. You can formally recognise that by putting people, giving them access to the board, access to decision making, and so forth. Or you can just consult really well. Or you can just get out there and be amongst them and take advice and do that really well. We had a fans group that had a percentage of the club when we acquired the club. We haven't retained them, but we remain in consistent dialogue with them. We've got people that have lived the journey, as our club president, who's been in and around the scene. So we've worked really hard to have as many links into our fan base to understand what's really important to them and share the journey on kind of where we're going. And so far, so good on that respect. At the end of the day, I think that again, one of the things I learned really well from City or City ownership was that don't say you're going to do it, just do it. And that's just what we've tried to take into here. And I think fans really respond to that, because I think most people really respond to that. Is that if you talk about the plans you're going to do, if you don't deliver, you straight away you got your backs up against the wall. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you just go out and do stuff, and if even better, if you're doing the stuff that's important to them, that they've been complaining about, you're fixing problems, then you're winning. I think with in terms of being aligned, in terms of the way you want to go. So massively important, has to be remembered all the time. We need to make sure that there are fans coming into our training grounds, fans that are not from privileged situations, reminding our players why we're doing it, who they're doing it for, what happens when we win, lose, draw, and who it impacts. We have to constantly remind people about that. And if you do all those sorts of things, then I think you've got a joined up club, whether or not you've got fans on the board.
Yeah, and I think it's probably a nice point to sort of end on. I know that the club owner made a massive donation to the local NHS trust in the summer, and then I saw on the news that he's put up a 6-figure sum with the aim of the club trying to at least double that to support the work that Marcus Rashford's done as well. Yeah,
that's right, and they're really, really important to just back up the sentiment with actions, and it's a great way of reminding everybody kind of why we're here, who we serve. In that respect, they're our most important projects. So we'll be doing lots more of those.
Brilliant. Well, before I round up, there's one more bit of information that Tony will want to share, Tony, and it's the second in our series of the work that we're doing with the European Footballer Agents Association.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. We were asked by Roberto Branco Martins, who's the General Counsel of the European Football Agents Association, to host a series of webinars that we've used our same format here, and we've transferred it to the first one, which was doing business in Germany, which was really, really good, really excellent. I mean, I took loads out of it because I haven't really done much business in Germany. We get a couple of experts on this next one. On Thursday, the 26th of November, we're going to have a couple of high-profile experts who work and are active in Spain, both agents and from a club perspective. It's a how-to guide for agents, but to be honest with you, I think anybody who's working in football, if you are on the other side of the fence like Simon and on the other side of the table, it's worth having a look at these webinars, because each country has its specific sort of nuances and ways of doing business and little, it's a little guide. It's what to do, what not to do, and it's so important in each territory. So that's something to look out for. And then the last Football Transfer Forum webinar of the year, which is Thursday, the 3rd of December. It's going to be a Christmas special. I don't know what that means yet, but it's going to be a Christmas special. I'm sure we'll work something out. So it'd be great if you'd all come back on and get, do the last one of the year. It's actually on the same day we had our last live event, which was at Anfield on the 3rd of December last year. So it's sort of an exact year since our live event. So hopefully we'll get back to some of them.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, we'll leave it there. I want to thank especially Sam and Simon for coming on today. Simon, I just thought your level of detail and your knowledge was absolutely tremendous today. So I really, really appreciate you sharing your insight. Sam, again, good luck for the launch of the game this month. As always, Guy, thank you for your contribution. And I'm sure when we're speaking again, Leicester will be top, and things will
Big
be
game tonight. Big game tonight.
Big game tonight. Yeah.
But it's, again, thank you guys as well. From my own personal view, fantastic, Simon, Sam. It'd be great to see you in the future with Dean for a coffee down in the studio. It'd be unbelievable.
Fantastic. And Tony, as always, sort of last word for you before we let the guys go.
Yeah, no, thanks to everyone. Really enjoyed it. 90 minutes plus a bit of injury time. It's flown by for me. So cheers, guys.
Okay, thank you to everybody.